The RPG Fanatic show is for hardcore RPG gamers. This video contains spoilers about the games reviewed. You have been warned!
Hey guys, it's Kerry Martell, the RPG Fanatic, and here, back in our dungeon, Castle Fanatica, and I'm about to do a review that's been highly anticipated for a while. It's about SaGa Frontier, one of my most favorite games ever. So let's dig into this and let's do this. I'm going to put a disclaimer here at the start, so nobody becomes upset later. Though I'll try to avoid it, there are some big spoilers about the storyline of the game in this review, mostly in the way of showing some clips of boss battles. If you don't like spoilers, don't watch this retrospective. Before we start, I want you all to know why I'm doing this review. As some are aware, I've been an outspoken critic about other game reviewers making statements about JRPGs and WRPGs, in a way that stereotypes the games made by the Japanese as being some kind of relic of the past, or criticizes the Japanese developers like Square-Enix as being behind the times, so to speak, when it comes to RPG game mechanics. SaGa Frontier is a game that the so-called experts in the JRPG versus WRPG debates tend to overlook when they try to pigeonhole Japanese RPGs into stereotypes. SaGa Frontier is one of those games that defies the stereotypes and basically makes the JRPG versus WRPG arguments null and void. The reason? It has a lot of the features people believe belong to the WRPG genre, and it was made by Square back in July 1997. Additionally, SaGa Frontier is a game that tends to be disrespected by their English-speaking game reviewers. A lot of reviewers were put off by the game's first impressions, and paid too much attention to the game's 2D graphics. But in Japan, the game sold over 1 million copies. SaGa Frontier is one of the top-selling PlayStation games in Japan, ranked at number 15 in total sales, and has had numerous re-releases over the years. So if you're someone who really buys into the nonsensical arguments made by other game reviewers who have convinced masses of people that a genre like JRPG really exists, this video should be very enlightening to you. Here's a quick summary of SaGa Frontier's many features. You can play as 7 different main characters, who each have their own unique storylines, and a few of them also have multiple endings to their stories determined by what choices you make at key plot points. There are a total of 31 recruitable characters who can join your main characters in their quests. SaGa Frontier has non-linear gameplay. For many characters, it is possible to put off completing the main storyline and focus on side quests from the very start of play. The combat system allows for the permadeath of characters, a huge amount of customization of your character's attributes and abilities, no character classes, no character levels, an innovative skill-based combat system where new abilities are learned by using similar abilities, and some skills become stronger the more you use them. A unique and difficult to master battle system that allows your team to unleash coordinated attacks called combinations and gain power based on what happens to them during battle. No random battles, instead you must bump into infield enemies to trigger combat. Now let's start going down this list and dig in deeper about what SaGa Frontier is and how the game works. Playable characters. SaGa Frontier has 7 main characters you can choose to play as, and I will list them in the order of whose scenario I consider to be the easiest and hardest. Red, a teenage boy whose family is murdered by the mysterious Black X terrorist organization. Red's life is saved by a superhero who grants Red the power to transform into a Kamen Rider-style hero called All-Kaiser. Blue, a recent graduate of the Magic Academy who is tasked by his nation to master as many different magic styles as possible and kill his twin brother, Rogue. Amelia, a famous model who is wrongfully imprisoned for the murder of her fiancé Ren. After breaking out of jail, she joins a secret organization chasing after the real killer, who calls himself the Joker. Asiles, a human girl who is forced to become a half-mystic when a horse carriage carrying the mystic lord, Orlaj, accidentally runs her over and Orlaj decides to give her his blood as an experiment. As a half-mystic, she is despised by both humans and full-blooded mystics, and escapes from the castle while being pursued by servants of the Mystic Lord. T-260G is an alien mech who crash-landed onto the planet while attempting to complete a highly important mission, but T-260G has forgotten his mission, and must recover its lost memory files in order to do so. Ricky is a fox-like creature from the monster world of Margmel. He is tasked by the village elder to gather the rings of Margmel in order to save his world from extinction. Lastly, Loot. a lazy bard whose mother finally kicks him out of the house to go find a job. He quickly becomes swept up into a resistance movement against Mondo, the leader of the Trinity Corporation, who had betrayed and killed Lute's father. The reason I mentioned playing each character in a certain order is because of the game's system save data feature. Basically, each time you clear a game scenario, you can tell your memory card that you cleared that storyline already. After clearing one score, you can begin a new character story with an increased rate of stat bonuses and skill learning. Some recruitable characters will even begin play with powerful abilities already learned. Lastly, if you clear all 7 storylines, you'll be able to access a special developer's room, similar to the one found in Chrono Trigger, if you defeat Lavos using only Chrono and Marley. Playable races. SaGa Frontier has many different recruitable characters, but all of them fall under the following races. Firstly, we have humans, which compose the majority of recruitable characters. Humans are intended to be a balanced race. The game does not have character classes, so human characters can be developed into many different ways, as either spellcasters or focused on using weapons or a hybrid of both. There are 5 weapon skill types in the game: martial arts, handguns, rifles, swords, and katanas. Each skill type has its own unique techniques the character can trigger by using skills from that family in combat, and some abilities, such as the Dream Super Combo, or DSC, also require you to master and equip certain techniques in order to activate those hidden skills. Furthermore, rather than use a stereotypical leveling system, human characters instead gain stats at the end of a battle based on what happened to the character during combat. If the character spent a lot of weapon points, they will increase their max weapon point value. If they lost a bunch of health points, they will increase their max HP value. If they use magic attacks, they will increase their intelligence score. This is somewhat similar to the combat system of Final Fantasy II. The second race is Mystics, which are kind of like a cross between a vampire and a blue mage from the Final Fantasy series. Mystics gain stats in battle the same way that human characters do, but they cannot learn weapon techniques. Instead, Mystics have default weapons they can unlock, such as the Mystic Sword and the Mystic Boots. These items allow the Mystic to absorb a defeated monster, which allows them to use that monster's special abilities in battle and absorb some of their attributes. However, each Mystic weapon can only absorb one enemy skill at a time. The third race is Mechs, which are robots with advanced artificial intelligence. Mechs do not gain stat bonuses from battles and cannot learn weapon techniques or use magic. Instead, mechs gain major stat bonuses by equipping items into their inventory slots, and they have more inventory slots than any other race. Mechs can also equip special memory board items that give them new abilities, and they can download data from defeated mech enemies to learn new abilities, similar to how Mega Man gains new powers when he defeats a robot master. Monsters are the final playable race type, but they should properly be called shapeshifters. Monsters do not gain stat bonuses or learn new skills like a human. Instead, they must absorb defeated monsters, taking on that monster's abilities and often their appearance. By repeatedly shape-shifting, the monster learns new abilities and gains gradual stat increases. Furthermore, some of the protagonists have unique abilities. For example, Assless is a half-mystic, so she can learn weapon techniques like a human, but she can also absorb monster abilities using mystic weapons. Furthermore, she begins with the gift for mystic magic, allowing her to learn new mystic spells by using mystic magic often in a battle. Another example is Red, who has the ability to transform into a Kamen Rider-inspired superhero to dramatically increase his stats, with the drawback that he will not gain any stat increases if the battle ends with him in this mode. There exists one mechanic that all races have in common: they can permanently die. Every character has an attribute called life points, or LP. Life points tend to range between 5 and 10, and they can be damaged when a character has lost their health points. When a character's life points reach 0, they die. Like, for real die. As in, you can no longer use this character ever again die. That's right, this is a so-called JRPG that has permadeath. Made in 1997. How's about them apples? Certain enemy attacks also ignore HP to directly attack life points, which can make battles even more difficult if you don't have items protecting your characters against these attacks. Because of the life points mechanic, SaGa Frontier can be a very difficult game for those who are not talented gamers. There are even bad choices you can make resulting in instant game overs. This is definitely not a game for people who do not consider themselves to be hardcore about RPGs, especially since grinding will not necessarily help you clear battles, since the strength of monsters increases as you encounter more fights. Sandbox gameplay. The SaGa series games are known for their sandbox-style gameplay. Although the game is still on a rail focused on telling a scripted story, there tends to be branching storylines, and you can often skip branches. More than anything, the games are filled with hidden secrets, and they can be quite difficult to trigger certain quests. You often need particular characters in your party to trigger certain events, and recruiting certain characters can also prevent you from performing certain events. Multiple endings. For scenarios that have multiple endings, the implementation is interesting. While some endings are determined by choices you make at key plot points, other endings can be unlocked depending on how you chose to grow your protagonist. For example, Assless has different endings if you chose to develop her mystic abilities than if you didn't grow them at all. Battle system. Even the battle system is pretty sandboxy. You will often see human characters get a light bulb over their head during battle as they learn new abilities. You could even trigger a special attack sequence called combinations, where your characters all attack an enemy at the same time. At first glance, combinations appear to be decided randomly, but there is a method to all the madness. The following information is an excerpt from a document created by the user Zeracthius, posted to the SaGa Frontier GameFAQs page. Mechanically, forming combos works very similarly to how it works in Romancing Saga Minstrel Song for the PlayStation 2. In SaGa Frontier, there are 8 combo characteristics: dead stop, down, instant stop, move, hot, cold, blackout, and snow. Each characteristic can be sent and or received, and each ability sends and or receives its own combination of the characteristics. Basically, in order to form a combo, 2 abilities need to occur one after the other, and the first needs to send at least one characteristic that the second receives. For example, stun slash sends down, and double slash receives down, so you can make the combo stun slash and double slash together. However, since double slash doesn't send any of the characteristics that stun slash needs, you can't make the reverse combo double slash stun slash. Longer combos are formed in the same manner. Just tack something on the beginning that sends something the first ability receives, or tack something on the end that receives something the last ability sends. As far as I can tell, the names of the characteristics are for descriptive purposes only. They don't appear to have any gameplay impact beyond forming combos. Dead Stop might sound like it might inflict death or palsy or whatever, but it's used by lots of abilities that don't inflict either, so it almost certainly doesn't. It could as easily be called Characteristic 1 or Itchy Foot or Litterbox Voodoo. It's just a name. If you'd like to know more about the fine details of the combat system, I suggest you expand this video description field where you can find a direct link to this article. I will also mention that there is a hidden value in the game called Battle Rank. The more enemies you fight, the higher this rank becomes. At certain thresholds of battle rank, the opponents faced in battle are upgraded to stronger forms. The battle rank system makes it impossible to level grind in order to make the game easier. Doing so will only make the game harder. SaGa Frontier is a game designed so that you must be skilled at the combat system in order to beat the game, and there is no easy path to victory. Now, the point of explaining all this is to show that this turn-based combat system is extremely complex compared to a lot of the systems in other games. A lot of people cannot get into SaGa Frontier because when they first play, they don't understand the deeper mechanics at work in the game, and I think this is due to poor packaging by the Squaresoft team when they localized the game for North America. SaGa Frontier came with a very thin instruction booklet, when it should have been packaged with a much more detailed guidebook. At the very least, Square should have sold a strategy guide. I think now is a good time to mention other issues with the game. It was very rushed. The game has a large number of bugs and poorly translated script issues that can make gameplay confusing for players. Those who have hacked the game ROM data have discovered unused areas and storyline events. One of the recruitable characters, Fuse, was also intended to have his own storyline, but this option was cut from the game's development. But a lot of his storyline events are still hidden within the game's code. Still, SaGa Frontier is one of my favorite games. The truly unique game mechanics present in this game best demonstrate the creativity of Squaresoft at the height of its creative peak in the late 90s, when it was releasing games like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Tactics, Bushido Blade, Xenogears, and Parasite Eve. The game also deeply influenced my own creative work. My Deathless Ninja G-Kaiser webcomic and the upcoming video series is a shout-out to the Alkaiser persona of the character Red, and the mechanics of my tabletop RPG system, Radiant Fantasia, owe a lot to SaGa Frontier's battle system. I think I will end the review on that note. I would love to talk more about SaGa Frontier and critically analyze the mechanics and storyline further, but if you have never played this game, I would spoil this wonderful title for you. I strongly encourage you to purchase a copy of SaGa Frontier and give it a try yourself. I will say, with no amount of hesitation, this is one of Square's best games, and if you are a serious RPG gamer,
This is a game you must play before you die.